Hello everyone, it's Annie and I'm here today with the Mid-year Freakout Tag, which is one of my favorite videos to film every single year. It's just so much fun to look back at my first 6 months of the year and what I've read. So this year, at the time of filming, I have read 80 books and my goal is 100, so not too shabby. Okay, I'm definitely gonna reach 100. I am really happy with a lot of the books that I read, but honestly, when I was looking at the questions of this tag, it was a little bit hard. It was hard to choose. So some of the questions might have some more than one books, okay? It's hard to choose. But the first book was not hard to choose. The first question is the best book I've read so far, which is The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke. This also happens to be the first book that I read in 2023. So it's kind of been downhill from here, to be honest. 2023 has been a really mixed bag. Some really good stuff happening, some really bad stuff happening, but The Unbroken was an amazing fantasy. It is an Arab-inspired fantasy by C.L. Clarke, and it has two POVs. It's sapphic, of course. Why wouldn't my favorite book be sapphic? So it follows Terrain, who is a soldier. She was stolen as a child and raised to kill and die for the Empire, who she owes loyalty to. But now her company has been sent back to her homeland to stop a rebellion, and the ties of blood may be stronger than she thought. So with Terrain, we have just one of my favorite tropes of all time, which is someone who was raised in an evil empire and then they realize like, hey, wait, this is bad, especially if they have like blood ties to the people that this evil empire is trying to like conquer or put down. That is one of my favorite tropes. I just absolutely love it. The second POV is Luca, who needs a turncoat, someone desperate enough to tiptoe the bayonet's edge between treason and orders, someone who can sway the rebels toward peace, while Luca focuses on what really matters, getting her uncle off the throne. So, and then they fall in love, of course. This is one of the most amazing books I've ever read. It's so immersive. The world building, the politics, just everything about it is so good. Terrain and Luca, just the chemistry between them is so to die for. All right, this is 100% the best book I have read so far in 2023. The best sequel, there were a lot that I could have chosen, but I am choosing The Battle Drum by Sara El-Arifi, and this is the sequel to it's the Ending Fire trilogy. What was the first book called? I don't remember. The Final Strife. And this book is a chunky book, okay? It's over 500 pages, but I read it in like 2 days. I devoured this book. It is so good. I was actually surprised how much I liked it because I love The Final Strife. That was a 5-star for me, but you know, you're always worried when it's a sequel. You're like, oh, is it gonna live up to the first book? And this absolutely did. All right, I absolutely loved everything that this book did. The Final Strife follows 3 women in this empire and they all have different colors of blood. There's red, blue, and clear. And I don't want to give too many spoilers if you haven't read the first book, so I'm not really gonna say a lot what happens plot-wise. But one of the characters, she really gets her spotlight in this book because the first book follows Honor and Sila, but then this book really makes Hassa, who is the third and clear-blooded individual POV, really her story really shines in this book. She is such an amazing character. She's also trans, and I just love that representation. And of course, this book is sapphic. I just loved everything about this book, and I can't wait for the last book of this trilogy. Sara El-Arifi is a master at world building. I love it. I love it so much. Okay, next question is a new release that I want to read that I haven't yet. So that will be a lot of things, but the one that I most want to read right now is In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune. I've heard really good things about it, especially from Jess from Books Past Bedtime, and I've really wanted to read it. It just looks really good. So this is a queer retelling of Pinocchio, which is not usually something I would gravitate towards, but it just looks really cute. Okay, so in a strange little home built into the branches of a grove of trees live 3 robots: fatherly inventor android Giovanni Lawson, a pleasantly sadistic nurse machine, and a small vacuum desperate for love and attention. Victor Lawson, a human, lives there too. They're a family, hidden and safe. The day Victor salvages and repairs an unfamiliar android labeled Hap, he learns of a shared dark past between Hap and Giovanni, a past spent hunting humans. Ooh, okay. So I'm not gonna read any more. I heard that there's really great asexual representation in this book. I heard that it has some deep and a little bit darker themes than some of TJ Klune's other books, but it's also really cozy and there's like some humor involved, which I think TJ Klune does really masterfully. So this is definitely high on my TBR. Me and my girlfriend are going to buddy read it really soon, so I definitely really want to read this soon. Next question is my most anticipated reads of the second half of the year. They have not come out yet. So I have 3 because I couldn't choose, okay? So the first one is the sequel to She Who Became the Sun. It is He Who Drowned the World by Shelley Parker Chan. So it's the sequel, I'm not gonna give anything away, but She Who Became the Sun was one of my most favorite books ever. I just loved it. It was billed as a cross between Mulan and the Song of Achilles. It has gender fluid main protagonist, it's sapphic, it is just so stunning. I love the character work, I love the world building, the politics, everything about it. Historical Chinese fantasy. Yes, I cannot wait for this book. The second book that is one of my most anticipated ones is The Water Outlaws by S.L. Huang, which just the cover alone makes it one of my most anticipated, but this is by Tor, and it is inspired by a classic of martial arts literature. Okay, so the Water Outlaws are bandits of devastating ruthlessness, unseemly femininity, dangerous philosophies, and ungovernable gender, who are ready to make history or tear it apart. Very, very interesting. Okay, I've heard amazing things by people who have read an arc of this. I did try and get an arc on NetGalley, but it still isn't approved. I don't see it getting approved for some reason. Tor is just like that. But this is absolutely one of my most anticipated books of the entire year. I can't wait to read this. It comes out August 22nd. And then lastly, we have These Burning Stars by Bethany Jacobs, which is coming out in October 17th. And all I needed to know about this is from the first review on Goodreads. It says, if you liked A Memory Called Empire, Trader Brew Cormorant, or Nine Fox Gambit, then you should read this book, which I loved all of these things, okay? So yeah, obviously I'm going to read this book. It follows June Ironway, a hacker, con artist, and only occasional thief, who has gotten her hands on a piece of contraband that could set her up for life. A video that implicates the powerful Nightfoot family in a planet-wide genocide 75 years ago. The Nightfoots control the precious Sevite that fuels interplanetary travel through 3 star systems, and someone is sure to pay handsomely for anything that could break their hold. Of course, anything valuable is also dangerous. The kingdom, the ruling power of the 3 star systems, is tied up in the Nightfoot's monopoly, and they can't afford to let June expose the truth. They task 2 of their most brutal clerics with hunting her down, stoic Chono, and brilliant hothead Essek, who also happens to be the heir to the Nightfoot Empire. But Chono and Essek are haunted in turn by a figure from their shared past known only as Six. What Six truly wants is anyone's guess, and the closer they get to finding June, the surer Chono is that Six is manipulating them all, and that they're headed for a bloody confrontation that no one will survive unscathed. So this is also tagged as lesbian, and I need this book. Okay, next is The Biggest Disappointment, which is Sorry Bro for me. This book is an Armenian story about a bisexual girl getting into her first female-female relationship, and while also finding herself through rediscovering her Armenian identity and reconnecting with her family. I really dislike this book. It just didn't work for me. The main character was one of the worst people I've ever read about, and it's not like she's like an unlikable female main character that like, I usually love those, okay? She's unlikable in the way that you're just like, you are treating everyone around you so horribly, and yet you still feel like everything should work out for you. Like, she was just really entitled and just a horrible person, and there was no growth. There was really no growth. I did not have high hopes for the romance at the end. Like, this does not seem like it's a romance that's gonna last, and that's kind of the point of a romance book. You're supposed to root for the romance, which I did not. And the author insulted Taylor Swift in this book, which honestly deducts a whole star for me. I really, really highly disliked this book, which is such a shame because I wanted to love it. I wanted this to be 5 stars, and it was not. It was like 1 or 2. The biggest surprise is the next question, and without a doubt, the Captive Prince series is my biggest shock of 2023. I read all 3 of them, of the series, because my girlfriend wanted me to read them, and I gotta be honest, I was skeptical. I was very, very skeptical because I've heard horrendous things, especially about the first book, and they are warranted. Okay. However, I think that the people who get over the shock value of the first book and go on to the second and third, like, you understand why the first book is how it is, because there is a lot of really shocking stuff, and absolutely look up content warnings before you read this book. There's a lot of just really disgusting, horrifying acts in this book, and it is very explicit. However, there is a reason for it, and it's not to glorify it. It really does not glorify anything like that, not slavery, not rape or anything. It happens, and it's not glorified, but it's because of the politics in the world building. And I gotta be honest, I did not like the first book very much, but I really did like the second and the third. And I had promised my girlfriend that I would read the whole thing, and we actually listened to it together on a little road trip, and it was a lot of fun. And the character work with these 2 characters, the main characters, was just really phenomenal. It was really, really well done, and it kept my attention, and it was a really good series, and I was very shocked that I ended up liking the series. Okay, the third book is my favorite, but please don't judge me for the first book. I promise I'm aware. But that's why it was shocking to me that I liked the whole thing. It was just really enjoyable, and just amazing writing, world building, character work, and I'm really glad that I read it. Favorite new debut is Deep as the Sky, Red as the Sea, okay, by Rita Chung Epig. I cannot believe that this is a debut novel because the writing is so lush, okay? The character work is so stunning. I just loved everything about this book. It is a historical book with a little smidge of fantasy thrown in there about a legendary Chinese pirate queen whose pirate husband dies, and then she is left his fleet of pirate ships, and she has to do everything she can to hold on to power as a woman. And this is just so amazing. I love this book. If you like the Poppy War, please pick this book up because the main character really, really reminds me of Rin in the Poppy War. She's just ruthless and powerful, and just someone who has gone through so much hardship in the beginning of the book, and she comes out on top every time. She is just so amazing to follow. The writing in this book is so descriptive, like you can smell the scenes, it's like you're really there. I think this book really deserves a higher rating on Goodreads. This is one of my favorite books I have read this year, and Rita Chung Epig is definitely an author that I'm going to read more from in the future because she is just an amazing author. Next question is newest favorite character, which is actually really difficult for me to answer this year because while characters are my favorite part of books, this year I just feel like I didn't really connect super well with a lot of characters. But I do have to say that one that sticks in my mind is the main character of The Sword of Kaigen, okay? Who is Misaki, who is the mother character, who I'm sure you've heard all about, okay? Because this book centers on a very non-traditional protagonist who is a middle-aged mother who had given up her warrior ways to become a housewife and is very subservient to her husband, and then she picks up her sword again to defend her son and her family and her country, and it is just phenomenal. This book is a self-published fantasy, and I think that's the only way it would have gotten published because it is quite non-traditional, but the character of this mother figure of Misaki is just one of the best characters I have ever read. She is so impeccably written. She has such complex feelings and emotions, and just, she is amazing, and I absolutely love her character arc. The arc in this book, it's long for a reason, okay? There is a reason for it, and it just gets better and better and better as you go on through this long book. Her character arc is one of the best I have ever read. Emma Wong absolutely has a talent for that, and while I do love this character, I do love that this is also a standalone fantasy, so you're not really committing to a huge series, unlike many other fantasy books. So this is absolutely worth the read if you haven't read it already. I gave it 5 stars simply because Misaki is so amazing, such a wonderful character to follow throughout this whole book. For a book that made me cry, that's also hard because I don't really cry while reading books. But 2 that made me definitely sad were We Deserve Monuments. This is really a tragic story. It's not a spoiler to say that because the protagonist moves down to Georgia with her family to meet with and live with her ailing grandmother who has a terminal breast cancer diagnosis, and it is terminal, so at the end she does die, and it is very sad. One of the best books I read this year, absolutely 100%, is a YA contemporary, and it's sapphic. It's an amazing book, deals with racism, and there is a little bit of a murder mystery in there. It's an amazing book, but really the family growth and how they come together at the end just in time before the grandmother dies is just really heartbreaking and bittersweet. So this was a definite tearjerker. And the other one is Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. This deals with death as well, because the main character is already dead. Okay, he dies in the first chapter, and he meets this ferryman who's supposed to guide him onto the afterlife, and they fall in love. That's the premise of the book. I got sad because at the end of the book, there's this dog, the ferryman's pet, who crosses over to the afterlife, and it's so sad. Yeah, I love that dog. So that was very emotional. That's a great book. I really loved it, and that's why TJ Klune's In the Lives of Puppets is now one of the books that I really want to read, because I didn't love In the Cerulean Sea, House in the Cerulean Sea, but I really loved this one. So that's why TJ Klune's newest book is high on my TBR. But yeah, it was definitely a bittersweet ending, let's just say that. A book that made me happy is Translation State by Ann Leckie, because this was my most anticipated book of the year. Ann Leckie is my favorite author ever. She's an amazing space opera author. She has won the Hugo at like every single sci-fi award that can possibly be won. She won it. And she's just a master, and this book was an absolute joy to read and listen to. I did both, and it just fulfilled all my very high expectations, which always makes me happy. So this book was definitely made me the happiest out of every book I've read so far. Yeah, it was amazing. It really has everything you could ever want, has amazing world building, great characters that you fall in love with from the very first page. Honestly, the first chapter like really sucks you in. It has this kind of mystery element and just really cool twists and turns, and it's awesome. I loved it. Next question, the most beautiful book I have hauled this year is 100% A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon, which is the prequel to The Priory of the Orange Tree. This book is honestly better than The Priory of the Orange Tree, at least for me personally. Although it does have a lot of POVs, which was my problem with Priory, I think this is a lot tighter and just really, really well told. It's such an amazing epic fantasy. And of course I hauled the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition, which is signed, and I love it. Okay, just this whole cover is a work of art. It is so gorgeous, and I know that Samantha Shannon is working on another Priory book. I'm so excited. I just love how this looks on my shelf. It's just absolutely stunning. The colors, the dragon details, and also just how it feels as well with the embossing. It's absolutely one of the most beautiful books that I hauled this year and also just ever laid eyes on. And the last question, a book I need to read by the end of 2023. I'm going to pick Warrior Girl Unearthed because I am planning, I plan my TBRs out way in advance for most months, and this book I am planning to read for November, which is Native American Heritage Month in the United States, and I'm planning to read this that month, and I've bought it, so that means I'm really, really highly anticipating it, and I just really need to read it. It follows Perry Firekeeper Birch, who has always known who she is, the laid-back twin, the troublemaker, the best fisher on Sugar Island. Her aspirations won't ever take her far from home, and she wouldn't have it any other way. But as the already striking number of missing Indigenous women continues to rise, and as her family becomes embroiled in a high-profile murder investigation, and as the greedy grave robbers seek to profit off what belongs to her Anishinaabe tribe, Perry begins to question everything. Yes, so while I didn't absolutely fall in love with Angeline Boulley's Firekeeper's Daughter, I really think that this is more my style. I do really appreciate that it is kind of highlighting the missing murdered Indigenous women and just bringing awareness to that, and I really, really want to read this book. So this is definitely one of the books that I'm most excited about reading before the year is over. Alright, so thank you all so much for watching my mid-year book freakout tag. This is always so much fun to film. Please let me know down below your answers to some of these questions, like what was the best book you read this year, or the worst book, your most disappointed book. Definitely let me know, I'm so curious. And let me know your thoughts on any of the books that I've mentioned here. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe to my channel for more bookish videos, and I'll see you next time. Bye!